Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jessica.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
All the way from Ontario. How are things in Ontario?
Oh, well, it's okay. It's interesting right now, to say the least. It's definitely better where you are, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
anybody wants to be here right now.
No, but we do what we have to do at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
So how about you tell all the listeners a little bit about you, a little bit about how you got into this line of work and how everything has evolved?
Yeah, sure. So I always wanted to go into medicine. And I was kind of, on that road to going into natural or to go into the medical route and, did all the schooling and everything. Then I got sick myself. And when I got sick myself, I was kind of pushed through the medical system like most people are, right? We go into walk-in clinics or we go see our GP. We're seen for 5 minutes and basically written a prescription. Now, that's not everybody, but for the most part, that happens. And I was given tons of antibiotics for issues that they didn't even test for, right? They just kind of assumed I had a bacterial infection and just gave me tons of antibiotics over and over again. Fast forward a year and a half, I was in the hospital getting surgery on my kidneys because it went misdiagnosed and it was just this huge issue. And so somebody said to me, you should go see a naturopathic doctor. I had no idea what that was at the time, but I went and she was great. She spent, over an hour with me the first time I met her. We did acupuncture. She completely overhauled my diet. We looked at the whole picture, not just symptoms and masking symptoms. She looked at my whole body health, right? Nutrition, mind, body medicine. So we kind of treated everything, and then all of my symptoms and my issues went away, which was great. And so I was kind of convinced at that point that that was the route of medicine I wanted to go. I really wanted to help treat from the root cause versus just masking symptoms and really getting that one-on-one connection with my patients. So going through school and everything like that, I obviously loved obstetrics. I had originally wanted to go into obstetrics medicine and doing birth, helping women birth and things like that. So I became a doula at the time. And so I've actually been a doula longer than I've been a naturopathic doctor. And from there, it kind of funneled into seeing pediatric patients, obviously seeing pregnant moms, and from there, seeing postpartum moms. But being in that world of pregnancy, we also see a lot of pregnancy loss, and that funneled me a lot into fertility. And so when I fell into fertility, this is where I feel like my soul just kind of set in. Like I really just became so passionate about it and really felt for these women. And I'm on this mission to really discover what is going on because so many women are diagnosed with unexplained infertility. Infertility is on the rise. We're just seeing so many issues that we didn't see before. And so we're really trying to get to where the root cause is so that we can treat and hopefully give those women, the babies they're hoping for. So here I am now, right? And I'm really on a mission to empower women throughout their fertility journey, but also through their pregnancy and their birthing process, because I really do feel that when women are empowered and they are healthy and thriving, then their children will be the same. And then ultimately we'll have healthier communities. And I think that women can move mountains. And, so that's kind of my mission and what I'm doing now. But
Oh
I
gosh,
love
I
what I'm
love
doing.
it. I
Yeah.
remember when I came across your some of your content a while back and I was waiting to reach out. But I loved because I've done a lot of research on, a fertility expert. So I really wanted to bring somebody on the podcast. What I loved about what you were doing is, of course, yes, the female empowerment and the naturopath aspect of it and the nutrition aspect of it. And it was just so much more. I can't think of the word. Everything else that I was viewing was very clinical,
Right.
whereas you were so warm and just like empowering. And it was just, there was like this magnetic force to be, looking through your stuff and listening to everything you were saying on all your lives. And so I just absolutely love what you're doing. And I'm your biggest fan, just so you know.
Oh, you're so sweet. Oh, that's so nice to hear. I hope even if I could just change one person's life, that would be the best thing for me. So,
and that's the best mindset to have. But okay, here is why I wanted to bring you on. And this goes into some of our bigger questions, the hard hitters.
Yeah.
So when I was a matchmaker, before I became a matchmaker, I had a mindset about what fertility looked like just for my own personal journey. But when I became a matchmaker, it was really interesting because we had women coming in their, early 30s to even late 30s, and they really wanted to find a partner now because they wanted to start a family.
Right.
And then on the other side, we had these men that were in their early 40s, mid 40s, and they are coming to a matchmaker because they really want to start a family. And they were all giving me these different ideas of what the age level or the age of that partner should be, or what that time frame is when it's a woman to start a family. So I found it really hard when men were in their mid 40s and they're saying, I need somebody who's in her early 30s, mid 30s to have a family with, because, the most compatible matches, they were in their late 30s, early 40s. But the minute they saw 40 on a profile, they're like, no, she can't, that's not my partner, no matter how compatible they were. So can you just talk to us about why that 40 number mark just completely is the drawing of a line in the concrete in regards to fertility?
Right. So one of the biggest things that we're seeing now is that women are starting to look for life partners, get married, and have children later in life. Right. So we're seeing a lot of women now focus on their careers, focus on other things before thinking about reproduction. And so a lot of women are, at the age of 35, 36, and just starting to think about starting a family. So one of the things that I try to drive home is that the way that we kind of, let me use an analogy because it's probably the easiest way to describe it. But when we are born, we're born with all the eggs we're going to have, right? And when we begin to have our menstrual cycles, every month we ovulate, we lose some of those eggs, right? So picture these eggs as swimmers at a swim meet. Okay.
Okay.
So
the analogy is happening in my head right now.
Yeah, they're swimmers and they're athletes. And so what happens is all of our eggs from our lifetime are sitting on the sidelines, right? So sitting on the sidelines of the pool, and every month, maybe 15 of those eggs will sort of get up to race, basically, but only one of those eggs will win. Or sometimes two win, really, right? So sometimes, so when we win, when I say by winning, what happens is that is the egg that ovulates. So even though all these eggs are kind of lining up to race, only one of those will actually be used at ovulation. Sometimes two, and that's driven by our follicle stimulating hormone. So this is a hormone that's secreted by the brain, and it tells your ovaries basically which egg is going to ovulate that month. Now, all the other eggs that don't ovulate don't go back to sit on the sidelines. They're gone. Okay. Oh, wow. So they don't come back. So the next month, another 20 will come up and line up and race again, and one will win. And so this happens every month throughout our lifetime. But what happens is, so obviously by the time we're 40, even 35. So I know a lot of women are thinking this 40 number in their head. It's actually now lowered to the age of 35. We're seeing our ovarian reserve drop tremendously, right? So it actually even begins at 30. We start seeing our egg numbers drop. And so, but at 35 is when we start to see it exponentially drop. And so what this means basically is that obviously we still have eggs there, right? So there's still these eggs waiting on the sidelines, but now the eggs we're ovulating with, they've been on the sidelines for about 20 something years hanging out there. And while they're hanging out there, they're subjected to damage. They're subjected to inflammation and oxidative stress. They're just, you don't want to call them old eggs or bad eggs because I hate that. It's more of they're tired, right? They're tired, they're exhausted. They don't really have energy to finish the race, if that makes sense.
They don't want to put up with the shit anymore.
Right. So, but what people don't understand is that just because the ovarian reserve might be lower does not necessarily mean that the quality is low. A lot of the times it can mean that the quality is not the best, but that's where we come in and we say, we just need to make sure that all of those swimmers on the sideline, all those eggs on the sideline are taken care of month to month, boosting their quality to make sure that when their time comes to ovulate, they're the best egg possible. So we have women who are 35 have really amazing eggs, and we have women at 32 who have terrible quality of eggs. And so yes, we know that age affects things, but there's so many other things that affect our eggs and affect our fertility as well. But I do see why men are thinking that, because it has been driven home that, you know, women are a ticking time bomb essentially. And, you know, we kind of need to get the ball rolling before things become more difficult. But with ovarian reserve, what it could mean that as it comes down, it could just mean it takes a longer time to pregnancy, but there are things that we could do around that.
So they're actually not wrong. The fact that, early 30s, mid 30s and 40, they're not wrong to want to partner up with somebody who may be a bit younger and has, that option for time when he wants to start a family. So he's not wrong, or she's not wrong. It's just.
Right. They're not wrong. They obviously know what they want, but at the same time, like I said, you can end up partnering them with someone who's 30, but still have maybe endometriosis or PCOS or, infertility related to toxin exposure and heavy metals. So you're not guaranteed this, ideal, I guess. Everybody is so different. And unfortunately, then it kind of cuts them off from somebody who can actually be a really wonderful match for them. Right? Like somebody who they can actually communicate with and love and have an amazing life with. They're just sort of writing off, which is unfortunate. So, yeah.
So, okay, like myself, just my own personal journey, I put blinders on in regards to fertility, like you said, because I was so focused on career and building something for myself, which is what the modern day woman now does. So much so that I haven't even thought about my fertility or my eggs or anything like that. And again, when I turned 35, I had a crisis because apparently geriatric is a word to describe things. And how do you feel about that? We've had a couple of followers talk about the word geriatric when explaining fertility at 35.
Gosh, yeah. So geriatric used to be a word that was used a lot, geriatric eggs or a geriatric pregnancy, if you were to get pregnant after the age of 35. Now they've sort of changed the word to advanced maternal age, which is just so ridiculous, right? It's, we're not seniors here. Like, I hate that word. And all these things just on, like bad eggs or, poor egg quality, like just all of these things can make women just feel less than and just feel like just maybe that they made a mistake, which is unfortunate too. So I really hate these words that are used. I think that there's definitely ways around it that people can just be a little bit more supportive and more nourishing in the way that they deliver things. Yeah. But yeah, it's unfortunate that women are made to feel old, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But you talked about, I watched, I devoured all of your content, but you talk about the FSH, which you just described to us, and how there's things that you can do to make sure that that egg is healthy, things that we can control early on, even before having a boyfriend or having a partner, or even deciding to have children, to make sure that our chances are better in the future. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I thought where I'm at now is it, and that's it. I didn't know that I could actually improve things.
Of course. So you have to remember that these eggs on the sideline, right? They may be a little bit more tired right now, but there are things that we can do to hopefully reverse that. So where the concern comes in, so if you're not seeing a holistic practitioner and maybe you're just going to see a fertility specialist at a clinic and they're talking to you about IVF now because of your egg reserve and things like that, they're not really giving you options to improve your eggs. They're basically saying, well, this is it. This is your ovarian reserve. You have no chance of conceiving naturally right now. IVF is your only option. Or maybe it's so far past that they're saying IVF isn't even an option for you. So the thing to remember is that as we age and as these eggs become less viable, and what I mean by that is more subjective to things like DNA damage. We know that the higher in age we are in pregnancy, we have a higher risk of genetic issues with the egg and genetic issues with our babies. But those genetic anomalies and those issues happen right before ovulation. So the cycle of the egg is about 90 days. So the time that it takes for that that follicle to kind of develop and that egg to mature and ovulate takes about 3 months. So if you were to get pregnant today, for example, you're getting pregnant with the health, I guess, an egg that is as healthy as you were 3 months ago, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to take 3 months to really work on changing that outcome and working on that quality of that egg so that when you do go to ovulate, or if you're going through IVF, you're getting pregnant with as healthy as egg as possible. So a lot of that damage happens right before ovulation. So you have time. So what we do is work on antioxidant support, right? So a lot of the damage that happens with our eggs is through oxidative stress. So oxidative stress happens naturally as we age, right? So, but there's things that kind of enhance that oxidative stress. So basically that means reactive oxygen species. I don't know if you remember science class or
No.
anything like that, but it basically drives up inflammation, causes DNA damage, and this is what we're trying to avoid. And the biggest source of the energy within the egg cell is the mitochondria. And if you go way back to science class, mitochondria is that powerhouse of energy in your cell, right? And it gives you the ATP. So ATP is like all that energy that your cells need. And eggs, every cell in our body has mitochondria, but eggs themselves have over 15,000 mitochondria, way more eggs than any other, or sorry, way more mitochondria than any other cells in the human body. So these eggs depend on the health of that mitochondria. So we can work on antioxidant support. Things that obviously contribute to more oxidative stress is things like alcohol, caffeine use, drugs, cigarette smoking, toxins in our environment, heavy metals, stress is a big one as well that will make us age faster, make our cells age faster, and our eggs age faster. So there's a lot of different components. Our diet is a huge source as well. So what we can do is work on a diet that's rich in antioxidants, right? So things like your dark leafy greens, your berries, your collards, taking out the foods that are not nourishing you or that are causing inflammation. So taking out that sugar, the processed foods, taking out pesticides. So trying to eat organic as much as possible, trying to not eat so high fat. Now there's such a difference between healthy fats and bad fats, right? So you want to stay away from those saturated fats as much as you can. Primarily plant-based proteins and lots of fruits and veggies, right? So that's the number one thing. Lots of water intake. I always encourage my clients to cleanse as well. Like if you have that 3-month window to really help your eggs get to where you want them to be, I highly recommend detoxing the body so that those eggs are as healthy as possible going in. So those are even just a few things to start, right? But healthy exercise, reducing stress, all of those things are going to help women even earlier in life set themselves up for better success.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't even just start like 3 months prior. I mean, of course it does, but this can be habits for, anytime to start.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I love it. So we have a ton. I posted on my Instagram that I'm bringing you on today. And as expected, my Instagram got blown up with questions.
Okay. I'm going to answer them as much as I can.
Yeah, and if you can't, that's totally fine. Okay. So one interesting question that I had was you were talking about, those 20 eggs that go and then they swim and then 1 or 2 wins. This gal, she asked this question, she had that hormone IUD that gets rid of her period completely. And she was wondering if that would save eggs, was her question, basically. So it eliminates her period. She's been on it for a majority of her life. And is she still losing those eggs without that menstruation?
Probably not, because she's probably not ovulating.
Right, exactly.
So, however, she needs to remember that being on a hormonal IUD is also messing with her own hormones, right? So anytime we're taking in exogenous hormones, whether it's through medications or oral birth control pills and the IUD, or it's through even like animal products that we're eating and things like that, that wreaks havoc on our own hormones. And so she needs to figure out what her period looks like without the IUD. Because I have so many women come off the IUD or off of birth control and have issues conceiving. and their periods are all over the place. They're having painful periods. But this was also an ongoing issue before they went on the pill. A lot of women go on IUDs and go on the pill because they have painful periods or have issues with their hormones. And this is an option given by the medical community, but that issue is still going to be there, right? That underlying problem that was causing all their issues in the first place is still going to be there, and probably worse now that they're coming off, because a lot of women are on these things for 10 years even.
Yeah.
So the other things that hormonal IUDs and the OC, like oral birth control pills, can do is really deplete a lot of the nutrients that are essential for fertility. Right. So she needs to make sure that when she comes off the IUD, she cleanses her body. She works on regulating her hormones and nourishing her cycle so that it's regular, testing her hormones when 3 months after she's off the IUD, because it'll take some time for those hormones to regulate. Testing her hormones at that point, figuring out where her egg status is. So that's the anti-Müllerian hormone. That's the hormone she'd want to test. And looking at all the other hormones, making sure everything's aligned before trying to conceive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this plays into, I'm skipping all over because I have a million questions to ask.
That's okay. Yeah.
But you were talking about the push and go method quite a bit on your lives. And is that, and I was kind of like getting bits and pieces of what that is. Can you explain what the push and go method is and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, so push and go is, it's kind of like a fertility screening tool
right.
that I give to women. So it's basically something that, or just to couples in general, that they can do to, before they even begin to think of starting to get pregnant, or maybe they've been trying for some time and just haven't gotten the basic testing done. It stands, so P is for patency. So looking at tubal patency, making sure your fallopian tubes are open. The U is for the uterus and an ultrasound. So looking for cysts, fibroids, polyps, bifurcated uterus, endometriomas, anything within the pelvic region that could potentially hinder a pregnancy. S is for semen analysis, because we can't forget about the guys.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
They're there too.
H is to get your hormones tested and making sure that you're working with a practitioner that's not just testing your basic hormones, but looking at, the whole functionality of your hormones and looking at downward hormones as well. G is for genetics. So could there be a genetic component that is hindering the pregnancy or causing pregnancy loss? And then other is, or O is other. So other testing that we consider as holistic practitioners that the general fertility community doesn't test. So things like MTHFR mutation, or looking at food sensitivities, heavy metal status, minerals, and all that stuff, which can contribute to fertility issues. So these are all of the things that if women are really wanting to go into a pregnancy really healthy, they should look at all those screening tools, making sure everything is aligned well before they go into a pregnancy.
Do you recommend this for women that are, still single and looking for a partner and they just want to,
Yeah, for sure.
Anytime, right?
The more we know about our bodies, the better. I really do find that women, you can actually, your cycle is a really, really good way to tell you what's going on the inside of your body, right? So we can actually harness the information that we're getting from our menstrual cycle to really tell us okay, is everything normal here? Or am I just assuming it's normal because everyone else is experiencing the same thing, right? Periods should not be painful. Periods should be regular. They should not have tons of clots. There should not be PMS, right? So, but these things are so normalized by the community that it's just oh, I'm on my period now. And we look at periods as a nuisance and things that we hate and we don't want, but it could tell us so much about what's going on in our body. And when we really tap into the knowledge that it can tell us, we can learn so much and really dive in deep. I always say, my fertility patients, they know more about their bodies than scientists do. I swear to God, because they've gone through so many tests and they've done all the research.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. If women are wanting to know kind of where their bodies are now, absolutely, they can look into these things.
There's one thing that I just want to state. It's not a question to you, but it's and it's something that I have talked about with my girlfriends before. And it's almost like when we put that type of effort in, we are like jinxing our ability to meet somebody. When we become so focused on something like our fertility or our desires for a partnership in the future, society kind of teaches us if you focus on it that much, then you're going to jinx it, or you're going to put too much effort or emphasis on it. But one thing that I love that you said is the more you know about your body, especially if family is your future and family is what you really want, and it's why you're dating ultimately to, meet someone to start a family with, why not start now when you're single, understanding all of this so that when you're partnering up, you're better at making decisions in that regard.
Absolutely. I think the more information we know, the better. Now, there's definitely a difference between knowledge and obsession, right? So what I mean by that is that you need to be very careful of your mindset. So my online fertility program, the very first module is all about the fertility mindset. Because if this is something that you are obsessing about and worrying about and constantly thinking about, I totally believe in manifesting things. But I can't tell you how many patients of mine come to me with years of fertility issues and then when we address the stress and the mindset, they get pregnant. Wow. Right? Because that cortisol driving up under stress and depleting of their adrenal glands will affect their own hormones and could hinder a pregnancy. And this is not to say if you're a stressed woman, you're not going to get pregnant. Absolutely not. But I really think that, yes, do your research and get all the knowledge about your body, but also trust that your body has the innate wisdom to conceive and your body knows what to do. So you need to trust your body, trust your womb, give your body the nourishment it needs, and listen to your body, because your body is telling you exactly what it needs all the time. But we ignore because we just have so much other stuff to think about. I can't tell you how many times I sit with patients all day and I have to pee and I don't go, right? And it's like hours later and then I'm running to the bathroom and sure enough, I ended up with kidney issues, right? And it's just, we need to listen to our bodies because they're always knocking at the door saying like, hey, you need to take a break, or you need to rest, or you need to eat, you need to drink some water, right? Just all these basic needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay. So we have another question from a follower, which is, I see a lot of late 30-year-old women freezing their eggs. Is this necessary? And what are your thoughts on that?
So it's not necessary unless it's very individualized. So obviously I wouldn't recommend freezing your eggs unless you obviously test your hormones, and then if you see a really low ovarian reserve, then you can absolutely freeze your eggs if you're somebody who's not ready to get pregnant yet, right? So I have recommended egg freezing to some of my patients for sure, because they are, say, 36, they're already coming back with a really low ovarian reserve and they just met their partner. They want to wait until they're married to have kids. So having kids for them is still, 2-3 years down the road. And that's where I go, okay, we need to have a conversation then, because this is what could potentially happen, right? 3 years down the road, we might get to a point where the ovarian reserve is so low that the quality is so low that it could be hard to bounce back. So it's so individualized. I've also had 40-year-old women though, with like amazing ovarian reserve numbers and quality, and, and they get pregnant. And so it's really an individualized thing. I mean, going through a retrieval process is no fun. You have to consider that it is a stressful time. It means you are going to be on hormones. They are going to be tracking your cycle, and you're going in for constant blood work and ultrasounds. So it is hard on the body, and the retrieval process can be hard on the body, but it can also give women a sense of relief knowing that they have good quality embryos available that are frozen. So one of the beauties of going through retrieval and IVF process is that they can actually look at the eggs and say, okay, these are like the best of the best, right? And then if you have a partner at the time, you can actually fertilize these eggs and, okay, these are the embryos that are like the best of the best, so that if you ever have to use them, they know exactly which egg you're probably going to have most success with, which is kind of cool. So I'm not pro or against. I think it's just very individualized for the person.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so what are some of the myths that you hear far too often that you would potentially want to dispel?
Oh gosh, there's so many myths. My biggest one is that fertility is mainly a woman's issue, I have to tell you, 90% of my patients are female. And I look at them and I go, where's your partner? Like, why aren't they here? Because research shows right across the board that it's 50-50, right? 30% of the time, it's strictly the male, 30% it's the female, and 30% of the time it's both. So here the woman is putting in all this energy, all this time. She's so stressed. She's charting her cycle. She's taking hormones. She's taking all the supplements. She's doing acupuncture. She's doing it all. And, you know, hubby's still sitting at home, sipping his coffee and having beer with the guys and like not doing anything. Right. And it's just so not fair. And I have had situations where I've been working with women, I regulate their cycles, everything is perfect and they're still not getting pregnant. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I finally get their partners in and run a semen analysis and it's suboptimal. And then when we work on the partner, they get pregnant. So it happens all the time. So that's one of the biggest myths I want to dispel. One of the other ones is that, like you said, women over 35 are not considered, you know, a viable partner and things like this. That's so heartbreaking to me. I really do feel that men and women are doing themselves a disservice by just kind of, I guess, pushing away from women that might be over the age of 35 or 40 and being scared of those numbers. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I think you just have to find a partner that you love and a partner that supports you, that you can communicate with. And then whether you have children together or not, at least you have somebody in your life that is like a rock and somebody that you love, and you'll have an amazing life with that person. And there's other ways of having children, right? There's surrogacy, there's egg donor, there's adoption. There's so many children out there that are looking for a home. And also you have the young women who might also have fertility issues as well. So I would say the majority of my patients are not over 40.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow, really?
No, they are not. Many of my patients are PCOS and endometriosis patients. And these girls are in their late 20s. Right? So trying to think if there's any other myths. Those are probably the two biggest ones. Or that, you know,
those numbers again. Sorry to interrupt. We'll come back. But like, can you give me those numbers again about the male? Sometimes the male's the problem, and the numbers you said 30%, 30%.
30%. Yeah, 30% it's the female partner, 30% it's the male, 30% it's both.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's 50-50.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
sorry to interrupt. You were going.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. The other myth that I hear a lot is that IVF is your only option, right? Like women with PCOS, oh, IVF is your only option. Endometriosis, IVF is your only option. My goodness, I have proved, all of us naturopaths who work in fertility or functional medicine doctors who work in fertility have proved that to be wrong. I have many women who are on the list to be scheduled for IVF within a few months, and then they get pregnant before, right? So we know it's not the only option. Now, some fertility clinics are fantastic and they actually recommend acupuncture. They recommend supplementation. There's actually beautiful supplements out there that have been really well researched in terms of supporting egg quality. And so I want to kind of dispel that myth as well, that you have to go like one route or the other. I have a lot of people saying, well, you know, if I work with you, does that mean I can't work with my fertility specialist? I'm like, absolutely not. Like the integrative approach is the way to go. Like you don't have to choose one or the other. So those are probably the biggest myths I hear.
I love that. Why do you think it is that myth comes at in vitro is the only way to go? Is it just because that's kind of the first stop that a lot of doctors go to, or is it just because it's the easiest, quote unquote, fix?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of both, but if you're going to a fertility clinic, I mean, they're usually promoting things like IVF and IUI, partly too, because they don't really work on the natural things with their patient. They don't talk to them about stress. They don't talk to them about changes in their diet. They might say, oh, you need to lose weight, but they don't tell them how, right? So to them, their treatment option doesn't change. To them, it's like, well, we know you're going to be going through IVF at some point. We'll do all the testing to figure out what's going on, but likely you're probably going to have to do IVF, right? Which is unfortunate, but that if you're going to a fertility specialist, likely that's the route they're going to gear you towards eventually, if within a few months you haven't conceived, or it's going to be like meds, right? Which work. I mean, there's definitely a place for IVF and there's a place for IUI. Absolutely. And when I have to have those conversations with my patients, I do. You know, when I feel like, okay, the boundary of our medicine, you know, we've kind of reached that wall, I think now is the time that we consider potential other sources. And if they do go through IVF, we'll just support them to make sure that IVF is successful, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll just make that our goal.
Yeah.
So I think there's a place for both.
Love it. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so I did talk about the IUD that stops period completely, but then of course there's birth controls out there that will give you a period every single month. Now, they are hormone based as well. Someone asked, should she take a break from it? Like, is it healthy to be on that for your whole life? Should she take a break? And what would that kind of look like in regards to fertility?
Yeah. So you have to remember that when you have a period, when you're on the birth control pill, even though you might be having a period every month, it's not a true period. You're not ovulating. You're not getting those hormone fluctuations that you would normally get in your regular cycle. So you're being highly controlled by outside hormones. So then we kind of go on these pills for, God, 5 to 10 years, sometimes 15 years for some women. And then we come off birth control and we go, okay, I'm ready to get pregnant now. Right. So we've been telling our bodies for so long not to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. And then we just expect it to be like, okay, it's time, let's go. Right. And for some women, it happens, right? They come off the pill and boom, they're pregnant. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. And so I'm not a proponent of birth control. Obviously, if it's their only option for, maybe this is the way that they stop themselves from getting pregnant, then this is their option for them and they're comfortable with that, and that's fine. However, we do know, like, there's cycle charting, there's other ways that you can do family planning and other ways that you can prevent pregnancies by just knowing what your body's doing, knowing when you're ovulating, tracking your cycle and all this stuff. So without having to put these endogenous hormones in our body. Being on the birth control short term is obviously a way different scenario than being on it long term. Like I said, being on it long term is kind of wreaking havoc on your own underlying issues, if there is any going on, and also depleting yourself of those essential nutrients. So B vitamins, magnesium, CoQ10, all of these things which are critical for fertility. So I can't obviously tell her to come off the pill.
No, yeah.
But what I can say is that she should definitely make herself well aware of why she's on it, first of all. What are her alternatives? And so could she be doing other things potentially instead of the pill to help manage, not getting pregnant and things like that?
Awesome. Oh my gosh, well, that was amazing. So how about we just close this out by telling people how they can find you and what working with you would look like?
Sure. So people can find me easily through my website. It's drjessicand.com, or through my Instagram. So I'm sure you'll post that as well.
Yeah, those are all going to be in the show notes.
That's probably where I'm the most active. Now, I am doing virtual consultations for anybody that's within Ontario. So as a naturopathic doctor licensed in Ontario, I can only technically treat those within my province. But I do have an online fertility program that people can actually do from the comfort of their own home. So it's 8 modules. It's completely online. They could do it at their own pace. It's for both partners. It goes through everything from understanding your fertility and your own body, going through the detox process, the diet, the supplementation, and even addressing pathologies like endometriosis, age-related infertility, etc. It actually even has a module on male factor infertility as well. So that's probably, for anybody outside of Ontario, the best way to kind of work with me. Otherwise, it's through one-on-one consultations that I'm doing virtually or in office in the Toronto area. But the other thing that I do want to offer your guests is a guide. It's basically my 9-step guide to enhancing egg quality. So this is like a free complimentary guide that I want to give your viewers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and hopefully, I think it'll just even give women some tools to think about that maybe they haven't thought about, like, oh, like that could be hindering my egg quality. Maybe I should do this. So I'll definitely be offering that to your group as well. But anybody who has questions or concerns can absolutely reach out to me. I'm happy to connect with them. I could work with them on a fertility coaching basis as well. So not as a naturopath. So if they are outside Ontario, I could work with them as their fertility coach. It just wouldn't be a doctor-patient relationship. So there's like a clear boundary there.
Mhm.
But yeah, you could just kind of, oh gosh, I feel like I'm everywhere. What else? I'll be launching my YouTube channel soon, so that'll be fun, and I'll be giving
Really? Oh, that's exciting.
information there. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. So
What's your vision for the future with this business, with all of this? Like, you have such a light on where you want to go, and it's all just very much like giving based. Like, what's your vision for it?
I think I give too much. People tell
No,
me
there's no such thing.
You give too much, but you don't take enough in. But honestly, I don't know. I just feel like there's such a disservice given to women. Like, there's so much misinformation out there, and I really want to change that. I really hate that. Like, when I read something and I'm like, oh, that's so wrong. And then they have like hundreds of thousands of followers. And I'm just like, but you're giving out such wrong information. And it drives me crazy, but to each their own, that's fine. But I do just want to give out as much information as I can and reach a more broader audience, like, apart from just my patients, because I mean, I help people across North America, and even Australia and the UK are taking my program. And so, I really do see that women are starting to awaken now and really start looking at their own health in a different way, which is really wonderful. So any tools that I can give them to help them is great. But I think the vision for kind of my own business is, I have the baby bloomers. So the baby bloomers is the fertility program, but it's kind of like an umbrella of a business, I guess, like you can say. But it just offers like perinatal and fertility solutions. So I have the fertility program, and then I will be launching the pregnancy and birth program as well. So prepping for childbirth, because I'm also a birth doula. And then I'll have the postpartum piece as well, because I really do want to help women along all of those avenues, because mothering doesn't just start when you become pregnant. It starts when you begin to think about even starting to try for a child, and mothering continues into postpartum. And we kind of forget about mothers at that point, which is awful.
Mhm.
There's just not enough support. So I really hope that I can just kind of 360 all the way around, help women all the way around. So we'll see what comes out of it.
Well, I'm going to be your follower for life. So I'm going to follow you on a journey and be your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah. And I really love what you're doing. And I can't wait to just be like, hey, you need to go, to this program and check out the singles she has. And so exciting. So
well, maybe I'll come to what is it? Aurora. That's small enough. Yeah. My next franchise will be in Aurora.
Oh my God. Or even if you come here and do just like a meet and greet night, it's like a singles night, things like that. Oh God, that'd be so amazing. We don't have anything like that here.
Nobody has anything like that anywhere except for the big cities. It's so horrible.
Right. It's all these, just big websites like match.com and like all these things. And you just hear horror stories and like it's not so great. So I love that you're just like this boutique, like just amazing amazing company that has just so many pieces to it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're doing like you have this database, but you also have these like little events that you do, which is just so fantastic. So I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, and you stay safe with COVID out there, and we will too.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to see how you evolve in the future. And I hope everybody in your singles group stays healthy, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.